everyone, and welcome not to a post-game show, but to the brand new weekly No Cat Space podcast, Ball Up Top. Get the horns out. We're so excited to be bringing you another piece of weekly content that you can come back to every week, especially to get your week started in the women's basketball world. This will be kind of a rotating cast. Whoever is here today. It's Tyler and Andrew holding it down for y'all in this first episode. We're recording this on Shawnee's birthday, so happy birthday to Shawnee. Happy birthday to you, Andrew. It just came and went. Like
turned 30 over the weekend,
it's
man.
Scorpio
Crazy.
season.
It is indeed Scorpio season, much to the chagrin of my beautiful wife. Capricorn season's coming soon, and that's her season.
It's on deck.
We're getting there.
Yeah. But the basis of this podcast, honestly, is just to talk about really whatever we want to talk about in the women's basketball world, whatever's kind of going on in this way. You know, a lot of times, a lot of our stuff is immediate post-game reactions, and we don't get to touch on kind of some of these bigger aspects in the women's basketball world at times. And that is what we're here to do. On a weekly basis, we'll be here every Tuesday dropping, and you'll be able to tune in on a weekly basis to the Ball Up Top podcast. I want to get this started off with, I guess, a little bit more of a serious topic. I got to talk about it in the 5-out column a little bit, but Andrew, you have not really kind of been able to call the ISO on the Seattle Storm player harassment, I think was the term used, investigation. Like, I don't really know. It's kind of all over the place right now. And that's honestly what I'm really interested in hearing from you, is from a journalism side, from just a dialogue side. Like, there's a lot going on right now in this, as we've learned. I'm just going to kind of open the floor up to you, because I'm just kind of interested in your thoughts about everything that's gone on with this investigation.
So before we do that, because it is everyone's first, every podcast is someone's first, but this is technically everybody's first podcast.
Yeah, right.
Why don't you touch quickly on what you wrote about in 5-out and set the table for where we're at with this entire fracas, if you could call it that, because I don't want people to get lost in the inside baseball, because boy, there's so much of it here.
There's a lot going on. Like, basically where I was at with it, and I still honestly am pretty much at with it, because we haven't changed much since then. We got a little bit more information, but a lot of it is just like, there's no right or wrong yet within all this. We first learned about that there was an investigation from Annie Costabile. I don't know. I've never actually heard the last name said out loud. But Annie is fantastic. Annie is like the best in the game right now.
Annie Wojnarowski. That's what we're calling
exactly her. From the Chicago Sun-Times. Like, so much respect for like the reporting that she does, and that's where it started. Was that it came from Annie that an investigation was underway on the Seattle Storm about player treatment and about varying aspects of the player treatment, whether it be NECA being left out of player meetings, whether it be Skylar Diggins-Smith, the coaching staff, Jewel Lloyd's involvement in kind of being the recipient of this. It was a lot. And then it kind of expanded, and we can kind of continue to learn more from further reports along the way. And as we kind of continue to expand, I still just don't feel like there's any definitive thing here yet at all. And I think that's where I just still am currently at, where it's like, this is going to get way messier before it gets clean. And Andrew, I'm sure there's probably something you'll touch on, but like, this isn't a clean break. There is really it's very hard to find clean breaks in the W with just the lack of movement available. This isn't the NBA where a player can kind of like, you hear that they're pissed off one day and then they're gone in like 48 hours. That's just not the way the W is set up, just from a cap space perspective, from just across the board. It's just not that way. And I feel like I've already seen a lot of like, oh, this person's right, or this person's right, or this person did like there's a lot of conclusions being made, and we just aren't there yet. And that's where I'm still currently at with it, where I'm just like, this is going to get messier. And until that kind of mess clears and we learn more, I still don't really have any like definitive take, because there is no take to have yet.
This could have been so run of the mill, if not for word of this EEOC complaint. That's a federal discrimination complaint, mind you, that is being made here against the Storm organization. If it really is that this is just a case of a bad roster construction and people don't like each other, this could have been solved already. Easily. You know, that's the weirdest thing to me, is that there's plenty of precedent for this in pro sports. I mean, we remember the Dwight Howard, Steve Nash Lakers saga. Like that to me kind of feels like this, where you put a bunch of stars together and within a year or two, it's very apparent to everybody, like, this is not
working.
Like, you got to blow this up as quickly as we put it together. But the difference here is there's a federal discrimination lawsuit here alleging a culture of bullying, alleging a culture of player mistreatment. But what's so weird is nothing that's come out seems to rise to the occasion of that kind of complaint. Like what we have through the reporting we've seen from Annie and from Roberto Rodriguez over at Beta Basket English is the fact that Skylar Diggins-Smith has a style that doesn't really jive with players. Jewell Loyd felt like she was not getting her just due as a third star in the system. Noelle Quinn and the coaching staff are alleged to have turned a blind eye to how Skylar is. And allegedly there was such a mistrust in Nneka Ogwumike as a mouthpiece for the coaching staff that she was intentionally kept out of players-only meetings.
Yeah, as the president of the Players Association is like a huge caveat here too. That like, is a whole different. One thing I before you kind of like go fully into one thing I have also seen is a lot of people talking about Skylar Diggins-Smith's past with the Wings and with the Mercury, and I don't. That doesn't matter to me in a way where it's like it's completely. It's not. It wasn't directly player to player a lot of time. A lot of it was do with the franchise, with the way things were being run. So like, I think if you want to say it from a standpoint of like, yeah, we obviously know Skylar is going to say whatever on her mind. That's fine. But anything further than that is kind of like a character defining moment that you can like attach like those situations to this situation doesn't feel right to me. Like it feels.
Again, it's the presence of the complaint that changes how we talk about this, right? Because if this really just came down to Skylar acting the way Skylar has a reputation of doing, I mean, yeah, like the onus is kind of on her to prove otherwise. It's well known. Yeah, sometimes it's been between organizations, and you can say that it's about her having a super competitive and intense drive to want to win. But again, that style is not for everyone. And, you know, we use like the Michael Jordan example, but frankly, Michael Jordan, it's only a good thing because he's Michael Jordan.
Yeah, anybody else is just an asshole.
Exactly. The Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant leadership style does not work unless you are a top 2 player in the league or in the league's history. And Skylar Diggins-Smith is a good player, maybe a great player, but is not, to me at least, a league-altering player. She is, I don't think at any point she has been a top 3 player in the WNBA. I think she's been top 5, top 6, but not a top 3. And again, though, like Diana Taurasi can get away with this because she's Diana Taurasi. You feel me? Yeah. There's levels to this. And I can totally see how if Skylar Diggins comes into a franchise and starts acting the way she has a reputation for acting, how that can fall upon deaf ears to some people, and how you can see a coaching staff kind of allow that to occur and think that they are not on your team when it comes to how they are policing their own players' behavior. But if there wasn't a complaint, that's all this would be. It would be a clash of personalities, a clash of styles. But now, because there's a federal discrimination lawsuit here, we're ascribing a lot more nefarious intention to Skylar Diggins-Smith. We're ascribing a lot more nefarious intention to this coaching staff, to the organization as a whole. And that's where I think things get a little fuzzy, because we're focused right now on all the Palace intrigue. You know, who said what and who did this? And did Jewell Loyd really get upset because she was 0.3 points per game off a performance incentive? And now Jewell Loyd's agent is out fighting with the reporter on Twitter. And, you know, like all of that stuff is, to me, irrelevant to what the actual questions need to be here, which is what happened here that made that lawsuit necessary.
Yeah.
Because frankly, that's the story.
That's bigger than basketball at that point. Like that is
federal lawsuit.
No, this is
not a lawsuit. I want to be careful with my language here. A federal complaint, not a lawsuit.
Yeah.
But the point kind of remains the same here, where we have to figure out, and the reporters need to figure out who did things to get it to the level where that complaint felt it needed to be filed. And if the complaint is bogus, then there's some hard questions.
That's different conversations to be had at that point.
Yeah, like you're really trying to burn some bridges on your way out of here. And it's weird because this literally could have just been a run-of-the-mill thing. Like Jewell Loyd probably wants to get out of Seattle after this. That's fine. She probably wants to trade to Chicago. Chicago really could use a guard. I get it. That's fine. I think it was really interesting that all these came through the Chicago Sun-Times reporter. And Annie is quickly asserting, and I want to give Annie her flowers here. She's very quickly asserting herself as like the national WNBA reporter here that is in the know with a lot of these sources league-wide. However, context clues here are important when it comes to how we look at these things. The reporter in question, Roberta Rodriguez, has been very open about the fact that she used to work for the organization. She's been very complimentary of Noelle Quinn and the coaching staff in the past. And so there are certain things where, you take the reporting of unbiased, with a grain of salt, right? However, you can still glean important things about this story via who's selling what and where, And I think you can apply the same to Annie. Like, where does this story come from? What do these sources have to gain? Whenever you are reading, and this is media literacy 101 for people, whenever there is a sourced reporting about things and you don't know who the source is, ask yourself a couple of questions. One, who gains by this quote being out there? Who gains by this story being out there? Why would they have a reason to give this information to this reporter? That is how you fill in the gaps. And even reporting that you deem biased, that stuff can still aid you in your quest for truth here. And I think that's what we need to find. But it's all so weird, man. I mean, the league has the league has a Twitter problem. And, Shawnee said this before, there is just way too much of this stuff, whether it's the Mercedes Russell tweets, about the coaching staff, whether it is Jewell Loyd's agent getting out and going back and forth with this reporter in the public sphere, and then the reporter coming back and saying, I tried to get Clutch for comment and they never responded to me. Like, this stuff does not need to be litigated out in the public sphere. Right. It's drama. We love mess. I get it. We've spent 13 minutes on it already, but the issue that I have is this is, if this stuff was happening in a higher, a men's NBA, NFL, this stuff, we would be looking at this like, what a clown show of an organization, clown show people, and why is this a federal EEOC complaint? Like, there needs to be more. Otherwise, there's not a single person that comes out of this looking good. It feels petty. It feels very leaning into the dramatics of like trying to get your dunk off on people, so to speak. Like, it feels like people are looking, whether it's in the reporting or in these complaints, like people are looking for their mic drop moment to win, the sort of public opinion that is WNBA Twitter. The whole thing just feels icky to me. It's icky. It's weird. And the question really is about the complaint and how much validity and merit there is to that. I don't care about any of the other stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like I said, I just think what's interesting to me as well, and not to spend too much more time on it, but like I am intrigued. Like, this is I guess more opportunity than normal to get out of a situation like this in terms of roster construction. You have the expansion draft coming off, where technically you don't have to protect every player. If technically, you have the Chicago connection, obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, Jewell Loyd is from Chicago, is very, very much very outspoken about being from Chicago. The report comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. Chicago's got the number 3 pick. I'm just Watt-padding, but there's a couple different routes, and it's also important to note that Nneka Ogwumike is a free agent, unrestricted. Like, she does not have to come back. And frankly, if I'm getting left out of team meetings, I don't know if I'd want to come back, there's so many different things. And I just think the biggest thing that I urge everyone to do, don't draw any conclusions yet. we are like, this has been not even a week of like knowing that this even exists, and there is a full federal investigation to come. Everyone, let's give it time. I think everyone like enjoys getting their comments in and everything, but I mean, that's what we do. So I get it, but like also, let's breathe. Let's take a second, because we're jumping to conclusions too quick, and we just don't know anything really right now. We are just getting crumbs. But yeah, to anything else on Seattle before we keep it pushing?
The questions that people need to ask are about the complaint.
Yep.
Everything else is fodder.
It's not about basketball right now.
Everything else is fodder for social media. Everything else is palace intrigue, and that stuff's fine. It's fine to comment on, but you know, again, for me, something just doesn't line up here, and you know, because it is an EEOC federal complaint about a culture of bullying and a federal complaint about discrimination on the basis of race or age or sexual orientation feels like a little bit more in terms of its allegations than Skylar cussing people out and the coaches look the other way about it. Because if that's all it is, then this is an insane thing to put out in the ether for a team that just had chemistry problems. So again, that's the question. That's what's going to require an answer. Yeah. That's all.
I'll tell you right now, this doesn't look like it's going to be the 23 Liberty like we had been talking about. We're like, oh, they just need a year.
Yeah, no book club. No book club is saving this.
No book club. That. Absolutely not.
No, there's no copy in
no chance.
Tom Sawyer or Atticus Finch is this team, man. I think you're the Storm. I think you're at the point of no return. I think you just blow it up and start over again, frankly.
I am pretty much right there with you.